us right now, Democratic strategist Robert Zimmerman, Republican strategist Betsy McCaughey, and the Dean of the School of Public Affairs at Baruch College, Professor David Birdsell. Nice to have you all here.
Good morning.
Okay, opinion or an order? What do you think the president was doing yesterday with his tweet? Robert, you want to start?
Of course it's an order. This is the President of the United States, the Commander-in-Chief of the greatest military in the world, the leader of the free world. So when he says something should be done in an official presidential document, it's an official presidential statement, his tweets, when he says that, that impacts thousands of lives of people who he oversees, whose careers depend upon him. Let's understand what the president is clearly doing with this tweet and with so many of his tweets is trying to undermine our system of checks and balances. And it's intriguing how many of his own administration are calling him out for the misinformation he puts out, and how many Republican senators are now speaking up over the way he's trying to interrupt a criminal investigation of which he's the subject of and try to influence it, and now attack the Manafort trial, trying to call that a hoax when he can also be impacted.
So you're talking about like Susan Collins has come out and said that's so inappropriate.
Absolutely.
At the same time, Sarah Sanders came out saying that he is not giving an order. He is stating his opinion, and he's fighting back her words.
And she's correct, and the president should be doing that. Let's start with the Mueller trial, which is getting so much attention. He's on trial for tax evasion and bank fraud, for crimes that he allegedly committed before he ever went to work for President Trump. In the first 3 days of the trial, not one mention of the Trump administration or the president, not even by the prosecution. And the judge, Judge Ellis, was right when he said in his own words that it appears that this trial is going on in an effort to put Mueller in a squeeze so that he will turn into a government witness against the president. That's the judge expressing his skepticism about this trial.
All right, so I know you're talking about the Manafort trial, but
well, because it's on the front page linked.
But we're talking about the tweet. An opinion
and the
or
tweet
an order?
Was an opinion because Jeff Sessions doesn't have the authority to terminate this investigation. He had already recused himself.
Professor Birdsell, from a scholarly point of view, how will the history take a look at this?
Well, if your boss tells you that you should do something, generally you assume that your boss is telling you to do it. Further, by singling out in this case that it should be done by the Attorney General, who has recused himself, it's another attack on the regular order of things. Rod Rosenstein is the only person at this point who actually has the authority to dismiss the special counsel. And that was not the person he asked to do that. He asked his boss to do that, again, who had formerly recused himself. So it's hard to understand this as less than a directive, although obviously it does not necessarily move straight into the firm order status.
But all those people were walking it back yesterday, Betsy, right?
No, they were clarifying. And let me point out
that's called walking it back.
That it's Mueller who's violating.
Betsy, you can
please don't interrupt.
Okay.
It's Mueller who's violating his mandate. His mandate was to investigate the Trump administration's possible collusion in Russian meddling. Now, I have one of the several indictments against Russians that he has issued so far. There is not one thing in this indictment of the 13 Russians that, just a moment, that in any way involves the Trump administration. These are just the ordinary hijinks that go on in all political campaigns. Somebody tweeting Hillary supports Sharia law.
Let me point out here before.
No, wait a second.
You made your point. You're running the clock, though, Betsy. Let's get down to some facts.
Let me just point out that Mueller should be looking into the really dangerous things. July 24th, the Department of Homeland Security announced that Russians have invaded the inner control rooms of major public electric utilities in this country. That's where lives are at stake.
By the way, let's first of all, let's point out, Betsy. Let's point out first of all, the president's own FBI director, the president's own Department of Justice officials have all pointed out that Director Mueller is perfectly within his mandate and is performing his mission appropriately, and they have attacked the president and said he's wrong to call this a witch hunt. Let's also point out as well that you bring up an important point, Betsy, about the need to be more aggressive with Russia, but in fact, The president's director of cybersecurity said President Trump has not given him a direct order to take on Russia. The director of national intelligence, Dan Coats, said red lights are blinking in terms of how dangerous Russia's programs are right now in terms of attacking our country, and the president has not stepped up and given him an order to fight back. Let me also point one more important point about this. We're dealing with not just meddling, but an attack on our democracy. And the fact that we have an environment where the president has not stepped up, in fact took a knee to Putin in Helsinki, that should be a concern to all of us about why the president is so obsequious to Vladimir Putin.
At the same time, though, isn't it just uncharted territory, period, to have a president tweeting out as much as he does? We've never had another president who took to social media in this manner.
Well, you know, President Obama started it. President Obama started it. He put it on the map.
Robert was talking about that this is an official document when it's put out on Twitter. We've never seen an official document on Twitter.
That's true.
That's
Professor.
That's right. Well, anything that the president produces, according to the National Archives, becomes part of the public record and an official document, and that's important. Now, Twitter didn't exist before the first Barack Obama term, if we're talking about presidencies. So naturally, anybody before Barack Obama didn't tweet because there was no opportunity to tweet. But there are other ways that presidents gain influence, speak to the media, back channel points of view and questions, and this is unprecedented for its public character. Unprecedented for its attack on the mechanisms of governance. And I want to weigh in on one earlier point that's important. The Mueller mandate is much broader than just the administration. There is a line that allows him to investigate crimes that he uncovers in the course of that investigation. That's how some of the Manafort information came to be, even though lots of the aspects of that investigation were there beforehand. I know a lot of people thought that he was just
investigating collusion with Russia. So I think it's kind of shocking that now we're doing tax evasion.
He's looking at money laundering. He's looking at obstruction of justice. There's a broad mandate here. Now, there are some
If you read the mandate, that is not true. He does not have a mandate to go on a fishing expedition to discredit the administration in any way he can.
Betsy, you can believe that. Also, some people believe that. Some people believe that is a think tank. So, I mean, we have to put it in perspective.
No, this independent counsel is a very dangerous thing because you have unleashed someone who claims unlimited power to discredit or taint members of the administration with no evidence.
Do you think he's taking too long?
Not it's a matter of taking too long.
Well, that's what the president's saying. When is he going to release this? He's asking for...
Have you read any of these indictments? Have you read them?
Absolutely,
I have. Have you read them?
And by the way...
They're complete idiocy. There is nothing in this indictment. You think that we should be spending our time on 13 Russians who set up tweets?
Because it's an attack on our country.
It is not.
And by the way, Trump's own appointees, actually, they've invaded 20 state election rolls. That's according to the Trump administration. Let's understand, President Trump's own appointees say this is an unprecedented attack on our country, and we ought to put patriotism above partisanship and understand that it's important to stand up to this assault on our democracy and fight back as a united country.
Countries have been trying to influence public opinion since the beginning of this nation. France did it in 1796, hoping that Jefferson would be chosen president instead of Adams. In 1948, the British did it, and because they wanted to make sure that we did not elect an isolationist president. From the beginning of our
let David get the last word. The professor.
It's right. Betsy has a Ph.D. too. But I think it's important to note that this is different because of network effects to a large extent. So one of the things that's happening with the Russian attacks is to discredit the production of information itself and make it hard to state claims about facts and evidence and what people believe when they're making arguments about policy. And that is in some respects a much more profound attack with much more pervasive effects than simply saying the United States should be doing something contrary to its interests.
It's also different because the president has not directed his administration to fight back aggressively and take on Russia with more aggressive sanctions, and also the need to protect the integrity of our independent special counsel, Bob Mueller. That's a bipartisan bill the Congress should pass.
All right, well, there you have it. The conversation will continue in your home.
on this panel.
On this panel and on our Fox 5 Facebook page.
Now can I spot the hipster?
Yeah, right.
See, now we're going to go to Williamsburg, spot the hipster. They want to be the hipsters, not going to happen.
You might have missed that boat.
Robert Zimmerman, Betsy McCaughey, Professor David Birdsell, thank you so much for being here.
Lively